Hi, this is Art, and this is from my book, And Another Thing, an eclectic collection of musings, afterthoughts, and paternal rantings. As a young man, I was employed by a mid-sized sales organization where I learned many valuable lessons about business and about life. Among those lessons was this one. No matter what else happens, it's always about the money. When I first started working for this organization, we had a manager that we'll call John, not his real name. John wasn't my manager, he worked in a different department, but his presence was always apparent. John was a thin, wiry fellow. He was very intense and a bit crude, and even though married with children, he was always talking about his exploits with women and making crude sexual remarks about his female customers. John was a loudmouth braggart and definitely not the kind of guy you'd want to socialize with. That said, he was always a very hard worker and always at the top of his game from a professional standpoint. Well, one day John didn't show up for work. No one saw him for several days. And although nothing was said, sometime later we did read about John in the newspaper. He had been arrested on a charge of child molestation. John was eventually convicted of that charge and went to prison. Now, one would think that was the last we ever saw of John, but it wasn't. A couple of years later, I was sitting in my boss's office discussing the latest sales figures when the vice president of our company walked in unannounced and sat down. He had something that he wanted to discuss with the two of us. He started out by saying, "I got a call from John last night." My boss Kenny and I just looked at each other with surprise. The VP continued, "John is out of prison now and he wants to come back to work." As Kenny and I stared at each other, the expression on both of our faces must have been a combination of wonder, amusement, and surprise. It was as if the VP was actually asking our opinion, as if there was actually a possibility that this sick, despicable individual would be allowed to come back, would be accepted into our presence once again. Well, what was said next was surprising, but also taught me a very valuable life lesson. Our VP's closing argument sealed the deal. He said there are three things that we have to consider when it comes to John. Number one, he always did a lot of business that brought money into our company. Number two, he does have this sickness. He likes to have sex with little girls. And number three, the clincher, he always did a lot of business that brought money into our company. And that was that. End of discussion. John came back to work the following Monday. Now, I suppose every story has two sides, and it can be reasonably argued that everyone deserves a second chance. To me, it meant only one thing, that no matter what horrible, disgusting, awful thing you do, it's always about the money, and that few things in life, business, or the world matter more. Now, I dare say that when John did come back, he was a very different person than the John we had all known and not loved. He was a kinder, gentler John, a John that had spent real time in real prison, perhaps a John that had been humiliated and victimized himself. He was a nervous, broken little fellow. He was no longer the brash braggart that he had once been. At times, I would notice his hand shaking so badly that he had trouble holding a cup of coffee, and he often had difficulty putting an entire sentence together without stuttering. Now, you might think that my analysis of this incident was cynical, but I submit that few things in life are more powerful, more motivating than money. It's what makes the world go round, and it's what makes some people, otherwise decent people, do things that they never thought they'd do. As you can easily see, this incident had a deep and profound effect on me and on my attitude toward the world in general. No matter how good you are, no matter how bad you are, at the end of the day, it's always about the money. Let me say that one more time in case you didn't catch it the first few times. It's always about the money. Period. Thanks for watching. And by the way, if you like my vlogs, you can become a subscriber at the bottom of your screen. It's free and it'll help me out. And don't forget to give me a thumbs up too. Thanks.